Just having so many fond memories in that building, it just makes it a pretty special place.
The Iowa Theater was a reflection of the greatness of Cedar Rapids as a community.
I think it's wonderful that the Board of Trustees and the Board of Directors have embraced saving this building.
What a statement to make to not just Cedar Rapids, but to the world that we're coming back.
Well, you know, we're alive and kicking.
I honestly couldn't tell you how I'm going to handle it when the curtain rises on opening night.
I'm a firm believer that when you've got something that's unique, you do everything you can to hold on to it, because generations beyond us will be grateful for it.
The Iowa Theater Building has been a key landmark of downtown Cedar Rapids for 81 years. Built on the corner of 1st Avenue and 3rd Street in 1928, the theater was originally known as the RKO Iowa.
It was really designed to be primarily a stage theater, and yet accommodate the wild popularity of the movies, which had been around for about 25 years at that point. The appearance of Katharine Hepburn in 1940 and her stage version of the Philadelphia Story was a very significant event.
You know, co-students used to have to walk down the hill to count the lights on the ear of corn on the Iowa Theater Building as part of a pledge initiation. My grandparents remember going to movies there. So it's just one of those places that I think is a touchstone for different generations, for different people.
When I was a child, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, the theaters downtown used to have free movies in the afternoon on the weekends so the parents could go Christmas shopping. And I would usually end up here on a Saturday afternoon, or the World, or the Paramount Theaters. So that was probably my first remembrance of downtown here at the Iowa Theater Building.
The Iowa found a new lease on life in 1983 when the Lingy family donated the building to Theater Cedar Rapids.
The old single-screen downtown movie theater was becoming obsolete, and the Iowa was reaching the end of that part of its function, and that coincided greatly with the fundraising efforts and the move to get a new, larger community theater.
It had been being used as a movie theater almost right up until we started, maybe a year or two before. It was a 99-cent movie theater at the end there. So not terrible, ugly, smelled bad, had a lot of popcorn stuck to the floor, and there was no pit. The pit was underneath. It was as a movie theater, they had filled in somehow so that the floor went down on the main floor and then came up to the stage. So I didn't even know there was a pit there, or an organ even, at the time when we first came in.
I was a carpenter's apprentice in I think it was 83 when they did the remodel here. What I remember were some major structural changes that had happened. The installation of the lighting catwalk, which is a very major structural component that went in. Also taking of part of the balcony area and converting it into a rehearsal area and creating a floor between 2nd and 3rd floor.
The day of opening, big opening night, you know, fancy gig, and we were there until, oh heavens, 6:30, 7 o'clock. We had tuxedos and things stuck somewhere downstairs that we would put on. But we were bolting seats down, we were vacuuming, we were cleaning off the dust from the construction that night.
This was a grand showplace performance center. The community theater became one of the crown jewels in the performing arts in this town.
I'm not sure if the entity we know as Theater Cedar Rapids would still be here or be as vital or be anywhere near what it has come to be had it not been for the building itself, the Iowa Theater Building.
As far as putting the theater as one, it became a major arts organization in that time. And that was because of the theater, new theater, because of the people that were involved.
For 25 years, Theater Cedar Rapids operated out of the Iowa Theater Building. But by 2008, the theater was showing its age.
We were outdated in the type of space we had. Our patron experience wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. We wanted to expand the lobby, improve restrooms, improve sight lines. So there was a lot of things we needed to do to kind of improve the patron experience at the theater.
Plain and simple, the Iowa Theater Building needs a major overhaul.
Imagine, if you will, at intermission, lines 30 people long, people not getting back to the show in time for the start of Act 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next act.
In March of 2008, Theater Cedar Rapids launched a multi-million-dollar capital campaign to raise funds for the building's renovation. The launch event featured performances from throughout the theater's history, as well as a video appearance by one of its most famous alumni. Actor Ron Livingston made his name in Hollywood with Band of Brothers and Office Space, but he came back to support the Cedar Rapids stage, where he got his start.
I'm very, very thrilled and proud to be a part of Theater Cedar Rapids' history, and today I invite you to join me in being a part of its ongoing future. Thank you very much.
The important thing about that whole campaign night kickoff was that we were talking about the next generations, not just celebrating the past, but building on the past to keep theater alive and to keep the opportunities there for the actors of the future.
The 1929 flood was 20 feet. This one looks like it will be about 12 feet above the record, and certainly no one would have ever expected this.
I woke up abnormally early that day, nervous.
Mark Geary, we understand, is in downtown Cedar Rapids with some more information about what's happening with the flooding in that area. Mark?
We're here in front of the Iowa Theater building. You can see they've stacked up some sandbags there now because there is a real threat now that this building could start to have a lot of water pouring into it at any moment.
You could hear water both down the street and in the basement.
I mean, you just don't know what this water's going to do. You don't know how far in it's going to come, and so the more help we have, the more sandbags we have, the better.
Well, first I was just praying to God it didn't hit the building. I really couldn't believe it got that far. When it did, the most amazing thing was the immediate response of our volunteers.
I can't put enough sandbags in front of this thing, but we're sure going to try.
Of course, if I fast forward through the day, there were moments that felt like the movie Titanic, because we had these odd glowing lights down in the basement, and there was running water. There were things floating in water, and we were trying to pump it out, and was able to find out that the reason I could hear running water is it was actually coming through a wall that we had barricaded off.
Well, it's a very frantic scene right here. People, they're running in and out of the building, basically trying to salvage whatever they can. Theater of Cedar Rapids obviously puts on a lot of shows that are very popular for people here in the downtown Cedar Rapids area.
Theaters are very personal places, and it's places that the community shares. And when a facility like the Iowa Theater was impacted by the flood, it's something that touched a nerve of everyone in the community, because everyone has such a shared experience of one type or another for that structure.
And as we were talking about before, the water is rising up incredibly fast. Earlier this afternoon, we were all the way down the street there, right by the Theater Cedar Rapids building, and now you can't even get there anymore because there's so much water in the way.
It was really heartbreaking. Just the initial impact of seeing all the damage it had done, and the idea that it wasn't ever going to be the same was hard to take.
There is water damage down here. There's also water damage in the pit. Unfortunately, in the house, you can see that the water has reached up to approximately the 6th row back.
7th row.
7th row.
7th row is wet.
Looking down any of the staircases and seeing heavy cases and things that had been thrown around, it was very surreal.
I was brokenhearted when the first time I walked in there, because of being there so long. And this was, for so many years, this was a baby of mine,
What it brought out was really what this theater means to so many people in town.
I couldn't just watch all the destruction online and on TV, and it's so heartbreaking, and this is my hometown, and this is the theater I performed at, lots of times, and I couldn't not help.
That building can be functional and more than functional. It can be a real landmark in the downtown area again. And the idea of disregarding that building and all of its history to build something new doesn't make any sense to me.
There's only one Iowa Theater building on Earth. There's only one Paramount Theater Those are unique, they're interesting, they're special about Cedar Rapids, and they're certainly part of our whole soul and heritage.
We can't live without art anywhere. We can't live that way. I felt awful walking in and seeing that all gone. I felt awful, but I never, ever doubted that it was going to be better.
In February of 2009, OPN Architects and Ryan Companies unveiled their vision for the future of the Iowa Theater building.
The concepts that are being presented, I think, bring it back to more the flavor of the spirit of its original construction in 1928.
You're going to be able to walk in and see what was original to the building. Just by being there, you'll be able to tell. But then by having these modern elements in it, we're able to incorporate some better technology, we're able to incorporate some better comfort into the lobby and the lounge.
Through some of the flood damage where we had to remove some of the walls that were built back in the early 80s, that behind those walls are some wonderful plaster details. And we think we've got a plan in place that will preserve and protect those and restore those back to their original condition.
It's just phenomenal. It's very smart design to me, very smart.
I was excited. There's no question about it. I was excited that that even though we had the devastation and the disaster to the building, that clear heads and creative heads came in with some terrific solutions. Of course, the visuals on the new expansion of the lobby are terrific, and especially the section that will open onto First Avenue.
The original goals of the next act were a $2.5 million capital renovation, seed an endowment, and expand our education program. We've seeded an endowment. We actually have $3 million raised. Of course, the building's going to cost more now, and it's not going to be 2.5. But because of the work that Ryan Companies and OPN Architects have done, the potential that we're going to see from FEMA is extraordinary.
Halt Ryan has also been kind enough to give us another challenge matching grant, $750,000. So when we raise $1, we immediately get it matched.
We need the community to help us with the last 10% of the fundraising. In essence, 90% has been done and is already in the works.
We hope to be under construction this spring, and we hope to be back in the building in the first quarter of 2010.
The show that opens the Iowa Theater building will be The Producers. We're really excited about that. I can't even say the title without laughing about it because it's so funny.
And I think we're going to come back stronger and be an anchor and one of the strongest resurgent organizations in downtown.
Welcome back to the Iowa Theater building.
On February 26, 2009, exactly 1 year to the day before their scheduled grand reopening, theater officials held a press conference in the flood-battered lobby of the Iowa Theater building to announce their plans to rebuild.
Despite all odds, Theater Cedar Rapids has come out of the flood a stronger nonprofit arts organization. The Iowa Theater building will be restored.
Just as Ron Livingston had done 1 year before, a former resident who made good in Hollywood appeared on screen at the press conference to show support. Michael Emerson, an Emmy winner for the TV show Lost, who grew up in eastern Iowa.
I'm here to ask for your support for the rescue and renovation of Theater Cedar Rapids. I'm here to ask for your support for the fine art of theater in your community. I should confess that I'm prejudiced. I'm a theater man. I've been doing plays since I was a kid. I learned how to act on school stages and in community theaters. So help keep that alive in your community. Please do what you can for Theater Cedar Rapids. Thank you.
This is a call to action to help us out however you can. If you can add to the extraordinary generosity of Audrey Lingy-Oval and her family, please do so. If you can help us match the wonderful commitment from the Halt Ryan Foundation, please do. And if you can do neither of those, buy a ticket and come and see a show.
Theater Cedar Rapids continued to perform shows at a temporary location they built at a former movie theater, which they named TCR Lindale. Meanwhile, from their makeshift office at the former Cedar Memorial Funeral Home, staff and volunteers got to work raising the last few donations to make the repairs downtown a reality.